Hi everyone, I'm Mike Crowe, and I'm one of the founders of Mitten Getaways Glamping Company. If you tuned in last time, you may have noticed my co-founder, wife, and all-around better half is not joining us today. She's visiting her parents and tending to their garden with our daughters this afternoon. If you know her, you know she's not terribly disappointed not to be on camera today. But thank you for tuning in to our podcast, The Mitten Minute, Our Glamping Journey, produced by Woodall's Campground Magazine. Our show is all about our journey to open a glamping resort here in Eastern Michigan and focuses on three aspects: planning, development, and the guest experience. As you found out last week, we're slowly crossing into the development aspects after several months of being exclusively in planning, although there is a lot more planning to be done. As always, we have to make sure everyone knows what glamping is. Glamping is not setting up a tent during a rainstorm while your daughters are tired and hungry. But probably more of a formal definition is glamping is a form of camping that involves accommodations and facilities much more luxurious than those associated with traditional camping. And for us at Mitten Getaways, we call our version of glamping Michiglamping because we are in Michigan, hence the mitten in our name. We want to have a variety of glamping accommodations set up with space between them, be available year-round, be on a secluded piece of land, which we've procured, and have plenty to do. So that's our little plug, in case the whole show wasn't enough of a plug, which we're appreciative for. In our last episode, we talked about our search for land, ultimately leading to what we call the land, which we're incredibly excited about. Today, we're going to focus on the site plans for that land. And the first question I thought we'd answer is, why do we even need site plans? If you're like me, a year ago, you didn't know much about them, but we're coming to find out that some of the main reasons we need them are, first and foremost, to be submitted to the township for approval. We have to have a special use permit granted, and we have to get our site plans approved by the township. We also need them for entity approvals like the health department and drain commission, for things like how we'll deal with wastewater or how we'll supply water to the various units on our resort. We need them for construction estimates and planning as we work with our general contractor. And we need them for things like artist renditions, maps of the resort, marketing, things like that. And those are just a few of the main reasons we need our site plans for. The next question someone might have is, what goes into the site plans? Also, I'm learning there's quite a bit that goes into them. But four things stick out to me. One, perk tests. Two, wetlands delineation. Three, boundary survey. And then four, a topographical survey. First, with the perk test, that is actually a test of the soil to determine how well it can filter and allow water to flow through it, wastewater in particular. So that's going to drive what type of septic field system we can have in place. As you know, we want to have bathrooms on every one of our resorts, and we're going to have to deal with the wastewater that come from those. We're also doing a wetlands delineation. We do have some wetlands on the property, and we want to make sure that we're avoiding those as much as possible. We're not necessarily not allowed to build in wetlands, but there are some additional permits that go into that if we did want to use that property. So we are trying to avoid building in wetlands if possible. We also have to get a boundary survey, and that just simply tells us what are the boundaries of our parcel. Helps make sure we're not building on somebody else's land and staying within the right distances from the edges of the property and edges of the water. And then last is the topographical survey. That just tells us the elevations of the property, helps in developing the construction plans, tells us things like, can we use gravity flow for dealing with the wastewater, or will we need lift stations to get it up to the field if it's traveling upwards? So that's a bit about the things that go into the site plan. Once we have it, we can actually take it to the township for approval. And what that looks like is we have to submit it. First, we have to submit it 3 weeks in advance of the actual meeting. The first meeting is with the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission is going to review our site plans and determine if they'll grant us a special use permit. If they do, from there, they can make a recommendation to the township board to approve the site plans that were submitted with that special use permit request. Now, one of the challenges is that these committees or groups of people only meet once per month, so that can create delays. So we're working closely with the Planning Commission members to make sure we're checking all the boxes for our site plan so that we can get through it the first time around. And along that line of thinking, what we're doing to help ensure we receive township approval is not only are we keeping in communication with the township board members, but we're also considering working with the neighbors, since, as I mentioned, we have to submit our special use permit 3 weeks in advance of the actual meeting. And the reason for that is so that the township can send out notice to all the neighbors within a certain number of feet of the property so that they can come to the meeting and either support or oppose the idea. And this is where it gets a little potentially concerning, is that those neighbors can come out and speak against our ideas. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast in the land development category or industry are aware of. So we've got mixed feedback from people whether or not we go out and meet with neighbors in advance and put faces with names and help explain what's really behind our resort. As a lot of you guys know, peace and privacy and seclusion are really cornerstones of our resort. So we would hope that if we can convey that to the neighbors, they would be willing to have us back there near them. But there's also some things we've learned about going in advance to neighbors and giving them more time to write up their arguments against us and do research. We had a neighbor, or a friend, I should say, across the state that's building a campground, and her neighbors actually identified some endangered species, a type of bat, so that she couldn't cut down trees during a certain time of year. So there's pros and cons to when we meet with the neighbors, if we meet with the neighbors at all. We do want a good relationship with them, so we're still strategizing in that area. Last question is when will we be ready? A lot of that's dependent on how long it takes for us to complete the components of the site plan, but we are hoping to at least present to the township by August or September, and we seem to be on track for that. We should be able to get our perk tests in the next 2 to 3 weeks. The wetlands should also be taking place in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We've been on the list for our consultant for the last 4 to 6 weeks, so we're expecting that any week now. And then the boundary survey and the topographic information should be able to get together in the next 4 weeks or so. And then with all that data, our engineer can sit down and actually create that site plan. So that's a bit about the site plans and process for us and what we've experienced and what we're experiencing. Before we close, it is the end of June. And if you saw our social media post at the beginning of June, you saw we had some big things to finish on our list. So I thought we'd just go through those briefly and see how we did. We wanted to engage an engineering firm. And fortunately, last week we did select one to work with. So things are underway to get that site plan done and ready for the township. We also had on our list produce a video pitch. We actually went out to the property and recorded some footage of us and of the property. And I'm happy to announce that is now available on our investors page of our website. We also wanted to open our investor funding round. We got that started last week as well, and things are going really well there. We wanted to promote our loyalty club. If you're not familiar with that, please do go online and check that out on our website. We've started to do some promotions with it. We're going to continue with that. If you're a glamper in the area or want to help us get started, this is one of our strategies to raise the funds to become operational next year. So we'd love to have you join that club and be a part of the vision to get it open. We're looking for corporate partners as well. I think this is a really cool opportunity for some local businesses or Michigan-based businesses to partner with us. We'd be doing some co-marketing with them of their services or products, as well as naming structures on the resort after those businesses and getting them in front of potentially thousands of guests per year. So really think this is a cool opportunity. So if you own a business or work for a business that might be a good fit to partner with us, please reach out. We have some information up on our website for that as well. On our checklist also for June was to record our first podcast episodes, and obviously we did that. So very pleased to check that box off. And then we wanted to expand our website content. Really pleased with how our website turned out. We opened a store to sell some items with our brand on it. We embedded this podcast on our website, built out our investors page, created a few other pages, and built out some other areas like frequently asked questions and our events page. I'm really happy with our website, and I think that it does a really great job of making our vision tangible until we can finally break ground on the actual resort. So a pretty productive June for us. And that brings us to the end. That's our show for today. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed it. If you have requests for the show or suggestions for future episodes, please submit them at mittengetaways.com/reach out, all one word, or email us at glampers@mittengetaways.com. The Mitten Minute, our podcast, is produced by Woodall's Campground Magazine. You can check out all the episodes of the show at mittengetaways.com/minute or search Mitten Minute on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts. You can also follow our journey in other ways, including our newsletter and on social media at mittengetaways.com/subscribe. So thank you everyone for tuning in and listening. We will see you next week.